everyone. How was your first week of homeschooling? Was it great? Well, if it wasn't as smooth as you hoped it would be, hang in there. You know, it usually takes me about 2 to 4 weeks to get into the full swing of things, so give yourself a little time to get adjusted. Today, I'm going to go over lessons 5 through 8, and here's a list of the supplies you're going to need. You are going to need the lesson book. You are going to need the student worksheet book. You are going to need the math balance. Oops, here we go. The math balance looks like this. You are going to need the math card games book. You are going to need the abacus, which is this. You're going to again need the place value cards, these things here. And you are going to need the music for the 30 Days Has September song. Now, you can find that in the appendix page, the appendix book, which is in your lesson manual. And it looks like this. This is the music. So if you have if you're a musician or you have a musical family, this would be a great place for you to get your resource. However, if you would rather listen to the song, then go ahead and you can listen to it on your CD, or the Yellow is the Sun CD, or you can listen to the music online under the songs resource. Each week, I am not going to include the cards and decks that you're going to need to play the math card games. That information will be included in the math card game manual instructions. So, ready to get started? Great, let's go ahead and start by turning to lesson 5 if you have your lesson manual with you. On this day, you are going to use one of my kids' favorite manipulatives, the math balance. If you have not put your balance together yet, here are some helpful hints. The pin and the counterweight are in a tiny little baggie like this that are taped to the bottom of the base. So here's what the base looks like, and they are usually taped somewhere around in here. So if you don't know, if you haven't put your balance together, you'll find those pieces there. Also, sometimes the plastics do not harden evenly, so the math balance can sometimes be a little crooked. So let me give you some tricks to help you make that balance. First of all, these little counterweights, let me show you what this looks like here. Looks like this, these little counterweights, that will go on this little section right here. So you can see I already have one on here. Okay, there are 4 counterweights in your baggie, so you can place as many as you need. You can place all of them on one side if that's helpful. Sometimes it's not enough, so if you want, you can also put the counterweights here on the side or on top. And by adding more on top, the heavier that side will go. So I'm just giving you some helpful hints. Hopefully your math balance balances, but if not, those are some helpful tips that will get that balance to balance. All right, so most of lesson 5 is pretty straightforward. One thing to note though, on the second page of the lesson, there is fabulous information under the explanation section. You're going to want to read this section if you feel that you need to use some flashcards. Also, the game for lesson 5 is go to the dump with 11s. This game is just like the regular go to the dump, but the equations will total 11 instead of 10. So definitely let your child use the abacus as they need it. These games are not a quiz or a test. These games provide the opportunity for learning. So if your child needs those extra tools until they get those math facts down, let them use it. Now, if your child is struggling with their math facts to 10, like if they were working on the go to the dump game, the regular go to the dump game, where the total was 10, and if your child's still working on that, then you do not want to play this version of the game yet. Instead, go ahead and play the regular go to the dump until those math facts to 10 are solid before you start moving on to different variations. One more thing to know about math card games. One thing that I have found, at least with my family, is have your child say the problem and the solution out loud. This is really helpful for your child to learn and retain the math facts. For example, if you're working on playing the regular go to the dump, and you know that 3 plus 7 equals 10, and you get that when their child asks for the 3 and you give them the 3 and they get that match, have them say 3 plus 7 equals 10. Saying it out loud will really help your child learn and retain those math facts. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 6. On this particular lesson, your child is going to learn how to use the part-whole circles. Part-whole circles are an excellent tool to help your child learn how to dissect word problems. Lots of children struggle with word problems. Many adults struggle with word problems. This is the part-whole circle is a great tool to help them dissect and break those word problems apart. Let me show you how it works. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is build your part-whole circles. So we'll make a large whole circle and smaller part circles. Now, I'm not a very good drawer, so you're going to have to overlook that one. All right, so let me give you a practice problem. Let's say if we have 2 plus 3 equals. Do we know the total amount? Do we know the whole? No, we don't. We do not know the whole. So we're going to leave the whole circle blank. But we do know the parts. We know one part is 2 and the other part is 3. Okay? What do we do to these two numbers to get to the whole? We are going to need to add. 2 plus 3 is 5. And to remind my kids early on, I just put a little plus sign down there at the bottom so that they know. That will need to go away later on, but just earlier on as your child is learning how to work through the part-whole circles, that is one way to help them. Okay, so let's take a look at how part-whole circles are used in the lesson. Okay, so in this lesson, we're totaling, we have, if you look in fact the middle of middle of lesson 6, you will see that the whole is 10 and one of the parts is 3. Okay? Now, we do not know the other part. How can we figure out what that other part is? Well, the difference between 10 and 3 is 7, right? And one way I like to have my kids remember that they need to do subtraction is, I always say this looks like a little subtraction sign. So 10 minus 3 equals 7. Also in this lesson, your child will need their worksheet book. They're going to complete worksheet 1. However, the first 3 problems of this worksheet, you are going to work together during the lesson. Then you're going to assign the last 2 problems for your child to work on their own. Be available for your child if they struggle with those word problems, the ones that they're doing independently. However, try not to give those answers to them. Instead, ask questions like, can you read that problem to me? Many times, students, they try to work so quickly that they don't read the question very closely. So having them read that question or the word problem out loud to you will help them like, oh, that's what that meant. Also, ask questions. Does this problem tell us the entire amount, the whole amount, the total amount? If they say yes, say, okay, get out the part-whole circles. Where does the whole amount go? Then ask, do we know any of the parts? So you're guiding your child through. Really try to help your child, but not tell them the answer. Simply ask them questions. That way you are encouraging your child to learn how to think and how to solve problems. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, your student is going to write problems on their math journal page. Now, the math journal page is found in the back of your student's workbook. So here's the workbook. And if they turn back to towards the end, they will find pages that look like this, the math journal. And that's where they're going to do this next section of activities. On the top of the second page of the lesson, under the section called a number plus 1, you will see that your child is going to start writing equations by adding a number plus 1. So for example, 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3. 3 plus 1 equals 4, etc. all of these problems your child is going to write in their math journal. Now, after they finish writing those problems or those equations, then your child will get out worksheet 2, and they will complete the section of the chart that covers those particular equations that they wrote in their math journal. They are not going to complete the entire chart. You're going to use this chart over the next several days. So you'll want to keep this worksheet handy. Now notice in the explanations towards the middle to the bottom of the second page of the lesson 7, you will see it says this: new entries to the table are shown in boldface. So you can see exactly what your child is supposed to be filling in as you move through the lesson. The game for lesson 7 is a fun and easy game to play. It's called Slower Speed Game, and you can find that game, the instructions to the game, in the Number Sense chapter. One more thing to note in lesson 7. The last comment in that section under the explanation says this: conclusions may be a summary of the day's lesson or an explanation of the lesson to challenge higher level thinking. Now, one thing I really liked about this is for us and my family, we use this time, those questions and the conclusion, to kind of go on academic field trips. Sometimes I would ask more complex questions, or my child would ask me complex questions, or we would discuss something that we learned in the lesson that maybe we can go and explore more on the internet. So I'm going to encourage you to ask these questions and then maybe broaden their scope of thinking, especially if your child loves science and loves the thinking and the questioning process. Use that time to kind of go on little field trips, if you will. Okay, let's take a look at lesson 8. As of the date of this recording, this is the first lesson that has a correction listed in the corrections page on our website. So I want to take a couple minutes to show you how to get to that page. Okay, so if you come to rightstartmath.com, you're going to want to go down to resources and then click on teaching support. That will take you to this page, and if you scroll down, you will see this tab called Corrections. And again, you're going to want to scroll down until you get to Right Start Math, 2nd edition, Level C. If you click on that, it will list all the corrections that have been made since this Level C 2nd edition has been in print. Now notice Lesson 8, which is where we are today. This change was made in 2014. So if you have an older version, an older print of this, you're borrowing a worksheet book from, or I'm sorry, a lessons manual from somebody else, a friend who bought it a long time ago, you might need to make this correction. However, if you purchased your Level C brand new recently, this change will have already been made in your lesson manual. So I would suggest that you go through this list and make changes to your lesson manual and worksheets so that you have that information when you get there. It will save you time and could possibly prevent some confusion and frustration later on. Now, the warm-up section in this lesson, Lesson 8, is a little longer than normal. Part of it is because of the Venn diagram shown, but it lists quite a few questions and does a lot of activities. For most days, you should spend 5 minutes or less on the warm-up section. That means if your child is struggling with the math facts and it's taking longer to do that warm-up section, then you will want to review some of the concepts or play extra math card games to strengthen up those math facts. The warm-up section is kind of like taking the pulse of your child. If they know those answers quickly, then you are good to go. And you may not even need to do all of the questions listed in the warm-up. In fact, if they are just shooting them out, you don't need to keep repeating similar questions. However, if your child is struggling, then you know that you're going to need to do some more review, whether it be on playing math card games or review of the concepts. You do not need to work through all of those problems, especially if your child is struggling. That's not going to help them. Just make a note of what they are struggling with. In fact, take a pencil and circle those problems that your child was struggling with. Go ahead and move on into the lesson, teach the new material, and then come back. One thing I found out with my kids is sometimes when we first start a lesson, they're a little rusty. They're not thinking in the math way yet. So by the time we get to the end of the lesson, and then I ask the exact same questions that were in the warm-up, they have them. So if that's the case, yay, they're still good to go. But if they are still struggling with those same equations, then you're going to want to either review the previous material that you've done at whatever lesson that material was covered, or if it's math facts, then you'll want to play some extra math card games. Okay, so let's look under the section called Even Numbers Plus 2. Now here, your student, it asks the student to use the abacus. Now you probably know that your child already knows their evens and odd numbers and their math facts. However, I'm still going to encourage you to use the abacus. Remember, we're trying to get your child to start being comfortable with using the abacus, as well as develop the ability to visualize the abacus in their mind. Until they can do it, don't skip the using of the abacus. Okay, on the top of page 2 of the lesson, you're going to continue the work on worksheet 2, what we started on and for lesson 7. Again, if you look under the explanations, it says new entries to the table will be shown in boldface. So here's where you know where on the table the new answers should go. Okay, so the game for lesson 8 is slower speed with evens and odds. This game is just like lesson 7's game, except the child will add the next or the previous even or odd number. Also, the conclusion for this lesson has quite a few problems on it compared to other conclusions in other lessons. Your child should be able to solve these problems. If they struggle, then you're probably going to want to spend a little bit more time playing the game slower, playing the card game slower speed with evens and odds. All right, so I talked you through lessons 5 through 8. So what about that 5th day of the week? If you were teaching lessons on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you finish all of those lessons, what do you do on Friday? Well, if those lessons went well, then on the 5th day of the week or on Friday, you can have your child pick a couple math card games to play, or if you are getting more confident, you can go on to the next lesson. If your child struggled with a lesson or two, then you can take that 5th day and review some of the lessons or sections of the lesson that your child struggled with. This is something that you will want to continue to do through the rest of the year. Okay, you are ready to start for the week. Don't forget to keep some laughter in the lessons. Keeping math light and fun will go a long way to help your child absorb the material that you are teaching them. Also, don't forget that if you have any questions or concerns at all, you can email us or call us for help. We are here to help you. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about lessons 9 through 12. Take care, everybody.